For serial channel, thank you for joining me again. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, thank you for joining me again. So I have put some aesthetics because I'm going to do a little coverage on a man called Ivan Milat, or Milat, whatever the hell is his name. You might know him as the Wolf Creek serial killer murderer. He's known for serial murders on backpackers or hitchhikers as I know them. In 1989, during the late 1980s, he is known to have killed 7 people, or 7 victims. Obviously, like any other serial killer, he's suspected for more. The way he would commit these murders is that he would abduct them, or kidnap them, and then take them to a remote area where he would torture them and sometimes essay them and then kill them and bury them. And this would be, his burial site would be a very popular Belanglo State Forest in Australia. Again, this all took place in Australia, in New South Wales. So Belanglo State Forest is very well known for its acres of land, but obviously due to this dark history, it is also very popular known because of the murders. We're going to get into now who Ivan is. So Ivan Robert Marco Milat was born in December 1944. He was from Australia and New South Wales. He was the son of Croatian immigrant. I cannot say this name properly and I don't really care, so I'm just going to write it here. And his mother was Margaret Elizabeth Filderston. She was an Australian national. Now she had 14 children in total, and Ivan was the 5th of the 14 children. Now I'm not sure if that's anything to do with his behaviour. Maybe he had a lack of comfort from his mom, he didn't have enough time with her, maybe she just didn't parent well, but yeah, there's clear red flags that you will see as we go throughout. So Ivan's family used to live in Bosley Park, just west of Sydney, and even though his parents were encouraging, they were said to be comforting and encouraging their children to learn and be good people. They would even encourage them to be in a Catholic church and read them scripture. There would be people who would say that they were still a bit, something's not going right with the family. For example, Ivan's dad was very abusive and a very big bully to the family and to the mother, and he was very well known for his bad temper and alcoholism. Now the Milat brothers would be very well known to the police from a very young age. They would be constantly charged with crimes relating to knife crimes, weapons, assaults on animals. They would even spend days doing target practice or shooting in the family garden on the trees. Ivan's own family was even said to notice that Ivan would have psychopathic ways or tendencies. This would include, but was not limited to, attacking animals with machetes and torturing them. This even led to a report of an incident that happened when he was age 13 in his school. It doesn't say quite clearly what the incident was, but yeah, it was enough to alert the police. By the time he was 17, he'd already gone into juvenile detention, and this was for the crimes of theft. When he was just 19, he committed a crime of breaking in and entering into a shop in 1964. He received 18 months for this breaking and entering crime, and then 1 month after he was released, he was arrested again for driving a stolen vehicle. For this, he would receive 2 years hard labour. So like I said, red flags were a red flag. He was just in and out of prison most of the time, and in September 1967, when he was 22, he did another 3 years in prison for theft. When Ivan was 16 years old, he met his first wife, Karen Duck, in 1983. She was already currently pregnant at the time by a close person to her, not really her partner. They got married in 1984. She had 1 daughter, but they separated in 1987. The reports of this main issue for the separation was that there was lots of domestic violence. They finally divorced in 1989. His ex-wife, now I guess you could say, even reported that Ivan was gun obsessed, gun crazy, and just very abusive and just not a good person to be around, basically. He would even go on what she called gun crazies, where he would go around killing kangaroos when they visited the Belanglo State Forest. Milat's great nephew, Matthew, Ben Cohen Klein, who was 19 at the time, would be sentenced to 43 years and 32 years for murdering their friend David. on his 17th birthday in the Belanglo State Forest in November of 2010. They had apparently recorded the attack, and it was David being hit in the head with a two-headed axe. John Marsden's deathbed, which was the family lawyer, stated that Milat had confessed to him that his sister, Shirley Soir, don't even know if that's right, had helped him commit the murders of the two British backpackers. In 2015, Milat's own brothers told the police detective that Ivan had admitted to them that he'd accidentally shot a taxi driver, Neville Knight, with a shotgun while attempting to rob him. This was in 1972 when Ivan was 17. Due to his injuries, Knight was paralysed from the waist down. However, due to whatever lack of evidence or investigation, I'm not sure, an innocent man took the blame for this crime. Alan Dillon was incarcerated for 7 years for this crime, even though many people believed it was Ivan. So now we're going to get into the victims, and trigger warning, or warning, whatever. These crimes do get very gross with nature, very sensitive with nature, so if you are not comfortable, feel free to leave this video. I will not take offense at all. September 1992, two runners found a concealed corpse while orienteering in Belanglo State Forest. Next morning, the police found a second corpse 100 feet from the other one. Through dental records, they were able to confirm that the both bodies were that of Clark and Walters, which I'll get into later. Walters had been stabbed 15 times, 4 times in the chest, once in the neck, which would have been paralysing. Clark had been shot 10 times in the head, and this was seen at the burial site. There was evidence of this. This was basically seen in the view of the police that Clark had been used as target practice. Despite extensive searching in the area, nothing else was discovered. Now, just bear that in mind for the later ones. In October 1993, a local discovered the bone of a body in the remote area of the state Belanglo Forest. Police were called and searched the area. 2 bodies were found. They would later be identified as the bodies of Gibson and Everest, which again we'll go into later. Gibson's skeleton was said to be in a fetal position, which I'm guessing is how you would be if you were trying to fight off an attack. Gibson had been stabbed 3 times by a large knife, which had gone through his spine. Obviously, again, would have caused paralysation. There were stab wounds to the back and neck as well, the back and chest, and this was said to have punctured the lungs from the heart. Everest had been beaten so badly that the skull had been fractured in 2 places. The jaw was broken, and there were 3 knife marks on the skull. They were also stabbed in the back. One crazy thing about Gibson's body was that Gibson's camera had been found 2 years earlier, and his backpack was found 2 years later than when the body was found. Both at the side of the road in Galston Gorge, so they were wondering, we did an extensive search, so why did we not come across the bodies? Maybe Ivan spent more time with them, I'm not sure. Maybe they didn't look properly, I don't know. In November of 1993, a skeleton was found in a clearing fire trail in Belanglo State Forest again. The police did a sweep and identified the body as that of Schmidl. They had again been stabbed in the chest, which would have punctured the heart and lungs. There was clothing found at the burial site, but they were not identified as that of Schmidl's, someone else. It must have been, they concluded it must have been somebody else's clothes. In fact, it matched another backpacker who had gone missing, called Habshid. The bodies of Habshid and Nugabauer, which is the Gem backpackers, were found nearby another fire trail in Belanglo State Forest in November 1990 in shallow graves. They were 50 metres apart from each other. Habshid had been decapitated, although they never found the skull, and Nugabauer had been shot in the head 6 times. Sadly, one thing that did come in connection with all of the corpses, all of the victims, shall I say, the police were able to establish that with all the inflictions of the wounds and the terrible ways that they were killed, they did sadly establish that the victims did not die instantly. So they were going through torture. So now I'm going to give more light, and quite rightly so, with much respect to the victims, and let you know a bit about them. So in 1989, Deborah Everest and James Gibson, who were Australian backpackers, both 19 years old, left Melbourne in December to go to Sydney, Australia. They stayed in a backpackers hostel in the inner city suburbs. Now, before I continue, just to let you know, backpacking back in the 1980s was highly encouraged. It was obviously without the presence of Ivan, people like Ivan. It was considered the best way to travel without spending a lot of money on petrol, trains, buses, cars, whatever. You know, you could just bring your bag, go to a backpacking hotel, where it'd be like a hostel, you'd share a bathroom, have a shared bed. It's just basic. You would have a bed and that's it. And you would, you know, just hitchhike. You would be walking on the road and try to put your thumb out if someone picked you up. Maybe they would offer to take you to the next stop and you would say, yeah, I'll get off at this stop, and then get another car or ride to the next place. You know, you'd gradually get to where you needed to be eventually through all these ways of transport. And like I said, it was considered very safe, very encouraging, because you were exploring places, you were getting to know people through these ways of transport, and you know, it was just a whole different frontier. Again, that was without the presence of people like Ivan. So it was considered a thing, but there are also many crimes that will be happening which involves those people who are hitchhiking or backpacking. So for God's sake, if you are still doing it, please be careful if you hitchhike or backpack. Please. You never know what cycles are out there. So, back to what we're doing. People will report that Deborah and James were last seen heading for Convest. They had plans to hitchhike to Albert. However, they'd gone missing after this. One day later, a bushwalker found the camera of James by the roadside in Galston Gorge in North Sydney. Now, not knowing that this would be connected to a crime, they took this camera home and it was that missing when James was reported to be found in the same area a few months later. And it was linked to the couple's missing persons report. So I'm guessing stuff that might have, you know, when you report missing, what they were wearing, what they might have had with their bags, stuff like that. In January 1991, German Simone Schmidl, who was 20 years old, set off to hitchhike to Sydney. She told people she would be going to Melbourne to meet her mum, who was coming down from Germany, to go and join her for a camping holiday. She was last seen at the train station, trying to hitchhike to Sydney. November 1993, her body was found in Belanglo State Forest. She had died from many stab wounds. In December, German backpackers Gabor Nogbauer, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. If I'm saying it wrong, I do apologise, who was 21 years old, and Anya Habshid, who was 20 years old, left a backpackers inn at King's Cross in Australia to go to Sydney, hitchhiking to Adelaide, and then from Adelaide they would go to Darwin. In 1993, their bodies were found in Belanglo State Forest. And then in 1992, in April, British backpackers Joan Walters and Caroline Clark, both 21 years of age, left King's Cross to hitchhike around Australia, headed for Victoria to go fruit picking. They would also go near Butch Pass, near Wollongong. I'm not even sure if I've said it right, I'll put it here. Here they would ask directions to go to Hume Highway. In 1992 in September, they again were found near Belanglo State Forest. So that's a bit about the victims. Obviously each one wanted to just travel, have fun, thinking everything was fine and hunky-dory. They had no ill intentions. Yeah, once again, just don't hitchhike, and if you're gonna hitchhike, please be careful. You know, obviously the sad thing is these guys meant no harm. They meant no ill will to anybody. They were just trying to get around, and yeah. So now we're going to look at how they finally found it was Ivan, the killer search basically. So in 1993, in October, a task force of more than 20 detectives was set up, and a reward of 500,000 Australian dollars, I think is their currency, I'm not sure, was offered for any information relating to the murders. A profile of the killer was made. This created a bit of a suspect list of 230 suspects, or people that seemed to fit the profile. However, thankfully, this was shortened later to 32 people. Now, because some of the backpackers were in pairs, there was some suspicion from the police that these people were killed by two killers. It wasn't just one person. Some of them were killed in different ways or buried separately, so there was suspicion that the motive, although there was a bit of a link there was still things that weren't necessarily looking all together. So they still had, you know, they still had ideas of what the killers could be if it was one or two. They were leaving room for error basically. However, a little encouragement in the case, a break in the case if you will. In November, police were contacted by a man called Paul Onions, who was from the UK. Reported that in 1990 in January, he tried to hitchhike and get a lift off a man who called himself Bill. And when he was in the car, this Bill pulled out a revolver shotgun, pulled out a revolver, and threatened to rob him at gunpoint and wanted to give him some rope that he had to tie him up basically. Thankfully, somehow, Paul managed to run away and get away and escape, and managed to flag down the car of a passerby who was that day an amazing heroine called Joanna Berry. They were able to escape the attempted shooting of Bill, who was constantly shooting him to try and kill him basically as he escaped, all in the area south of Mittagong. Paul even stated that he had actually been picked up from Liverpool station in Mildern, and that's where Bill approached him, or he basically got the lift off him. But again, thankfully he escaped.
Paul Onions is the only person to stare down the barrel of Ivan Milat's gun and live to tell the story. And just as well, because Ivan Milat could still be at large and still be killing if it wasn't for this young Englishman and his love of adventure.
G'day mate, how did we hit you?
So angry.
He approached you.
Oh, as I came out the shop, he says, do you need, he seen my rucksack on my back, he says, do you need a lift? And I thought, oh great, yeah.
Oh, there's the car, bring me back in the back and we'll get going.
My lucky day.
Yeah, brilliant.
I don't care where you come from, it's just not bloody right.
And he says, oh.
We'll lose the radio signal, mate, when we get this far out of Sydney. I'm going to pull over up the road and I'm going to get some cassettes from underneath the seat so we can listen to some music, eh?
That was his excuse, really, to get some cassettes from under the seat to put some music on. Well, it just seemed odd because there was actually cassettes in between us. Once the vehicle was pulled over and he got out to search under the seat, I thought, you know, there's two sides to your brain. There's the calm side saying, oh, you should be happy this guy's given you a lift. What are you worried about? Then there's the other side saying, hold on, there's something doesn't feel right there. So the initial reaction to me then was, well, I'll just stretch my legs and see how it provokes him.
Why are you getting out of the car?
After all, it's a sunny day and there are quite a few cars around.
I had a look around. I thought, oh, well, what's the problem? Surely not here, like, not in this situation. So I thought I'll just get back in and see what happens. So I got back in the vehicle and just put my seatbelt on. He watched me do it. He got back in. So I thought, oh, no problem at all. Then the next minute he jumps straight back out and says, I'll just have a look under the seat one more time. And I thought, oh, this is it.
I'll have one of those cassettes, huh?
So he just bent over, looked under the seat, and just pulled out a revolver. And obviously all the questions was answered in one movement.
You know what this is?
Easy, bro. What's wrong, mate? But please, just calm down, mate.
And then the next minute he just pulled this rope from under the seat. And when I seen the rope, that just scared me more than the gun. But as soon as I seen the rope, I thought, oh, that's going to be you know, it's going to take a bit of time. He's going to do whatever he wants.
It's a robbery, that's what it is.
I just thought, I'm out of here, like. I was just, you know, obviously panicking and just running off away from the vehicle. I heard him shout, stop else I'll shoot, stop else I'll shoot. And then I just heard the gun go off. And that was like, I was really panicking then to try and stop some vehicles. And they obviously could see what was happening. And they were just stopping, slowing down, and just driving straight off. I thought, oh, nobody's going to stop.
Oh, man, stop! Guys, come on! Come on, please, oh, guys, stop! Get back in the car!
It's just like a passing of time. I was just about to give up and say, oh, yeah, he's won. I better go back.
Get back in the car!
And I thought, if I go back there, that, you know, he just seemed that was the end when I made my mind up what I was going to do. I thought the next vehicle that comes over the bow of the hill, I'm just going to stop it no matter what.
What, jump in front of it?
Yeah, it just seemed I'd rather stop a car, get killed, than go back to that vehicle and face the end that way.
Yeah, he would have joined the others in the forest.
Or you...
Thankfully, Luckily, they were able to remember the name of the car, or the make of the car, the plate of the car, and were able to give this description to the police, as well with Joanna, the escape car basically, who also backed up this statement for Paul. Now, I don't know what happened to this report, but long story short, it got lost or left for a long time, and then later, in April 1994, detectives came across Paul's report, and it went from there. Police began observing Ivan's house due to a tip-off from people who knew Ivan, friends, even colleagues, who said that he seemed to be quite the character, let's put it that way. You know, he was very gun-happy, and he was boasting about these murders that he'd been committing. I don't know who does that, even for a joke. It's not right. So they would collectively observe his house in Cinnabar Street in Eastvale in 1994. They would have him under surveillance. Police would then later find out that he had sold his silver Nissan patrol car after it had become known by the public that the bodies of Walter and Clark had become well known to the public that the bodies of Clark and Walters had been found. Police also kind of had a lucky time because they had evidence to suggest that Ivan had not been working on any of the days that the murders had been committed. Ivan's locals around him, basically, family and friends who knew him, were even happy to let police know of his fondness with attacking animals with machetes and being gone crazy, and his abusive ways. Eventually, the police would link Paul's experience, his incident with Ivan, who later became known as Bill, and the connection of the murders. Paul would even be asked to fly to Australia to give a lineup identification of Bill, aka Ivan. So in May 1994, Paul positively ID'd Ivan, aka Bill, as the one who tried to abduct him, murder him, and rob him. However, at this moment, they could only charge Ivan with attempted robbery and attempted abduction. They also added on a weapons charge after 50 police searched his house. Now, the police were having a great time, even better, because the search that they managed to do on Millen's house came up with the following. They found weapons that were like rifles and revolvers that related to the murders, knives that had links to the murders, belongings of 7 of the victims, so he'd obviously kept trophies, as you call it. Even Ivan's mum and 5 of his brothers also had belongings that were linked to the victims. So whether he gave them as trophies to them, or presents, or whether he gave them as keepsakes, I don't know. Ivan went to court. He didn't give any plea of guilty or not guilty. However, with all the evidence that had been collected from Ivan's houses, he was additionally charged with 7 murders, along with the charges of abduction, robbery of Paul, and the weapons charge. Ivan would later fire James Marsden, the family lawyer, and the request that his defence would be paid for by legal aid. His brothers Richard and Walter were also charged with connection to help him assist in the murders, and were also charged with connection to the weapons and drugs that were found in the houses, and the stolen items, of course. The trial for these murders literally went on from October to December. Over 200 witnesses were heard in the defence of the murder victims. Ivan was placed in custody the whole time, and this was during the hearing period. The prosecutor of the case would be Mark Tedeschi, and the final trial would take place in March of 1996. Ivan would constantly stand by the fact that he said it wasn't me, and he would even try to put the blame on his family, saying it was one of them, particularly his brother Richard. On the 22nd of July 1996, Ivan was finally charged with guilt of all murders. He was given life sentences for each consecutive murder, and was given life of imprisonment without possibility of parole. When he was in jail, Ivan was beaten by an inmate in Maitland Gaol. In May 1997, he tried to escape, with a former drug dealer, former Sydney councillor, George Savas, or Savas, I don't even know. This was a failed attempt. Savas was found hanged in his cell the next day. Now, you could say that was Ivan. I'm not sure. There's no evidence to suggest it, but it is a possibility that he got pissed off and was like, you didn't really help me, given Ivan's lovely background. And due to this attempted escape, Ivan was then moved to maximum security cell in Goulburn Correctional Centre. And despite many of Ivan's appeals and constantly saying that he was not guilty, he didn't do anything, he has no connection to these murders or whatever happened, his pleas and attempts to overthrow his conviction were never successful. Even really stranger, later on in life, Ivan would suddenly deny his family involvement in the murders. In January of 2009, Ivan tried to encourage a plea to get out of prison again by cutting off his finger and attempting to send it to the High Prison Court, which never happened. It never got that far. He was simply taken to hospital to be dealt with. He would try to self-harm by swallowing razor blades, staples, or any metal object, so he was placed on suicide watch. He even went on hunger strike to try to finish up his sentence. Basically, it was either let me out early or I'm just going to kill myself. However, he was forced to be put on an IV. And then in 2019, in May, he was diagnosed with throat cancer. He would die in 2019 of both stomach and throat cancer. And what's even more funny, as a last kind of slap in the face, Ivan tried to ask for his funeral to be paid for by the New South Wales government. However, they were just like, no. So he was cremated, and his cremation was paid for by his remaining account from prison, which is obviously an account that all prisoners get to pay for cigarettes or whatever. The only last known thing about Ivan was that apparently he confessed the murders to his mum, but she would never substantiate these comments or anything like that. She would always stand by her son. So yeah, that was Ivan. Piece of work. Again, you could actually see this on a TV series, I believe, on Netflix, and I think it's also been made into a movie called Wolf Creek. I think there's Wolf Creek 1, 2 and 3, I'm not sure. Again, trigger warning, it is not like the best thing to watch if you're antsy about blood and everything.
This is murder.
Observe, be patient. We shall find the truth.
Listen now, only on Audible.
No sign of intelligent life forms.
Wow. That's awesome.
Looks like we might be spending the night.
What the hell?
Just stay in the car.
What the bloody hell are you mob doing out here? Scared the shit out of me.
So, where do you live?
Oh, I get around here. Never know where I might pop up.
What do you actually do?
I can tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
About torture. It's not comfortable to watch, and it's not a very happy ending, so trigger warning there if you want to watch that. But yeah, that was Ivan. Piece of work, and I hope these families have had some kind of reassurance knowing that the bodies were found and that he was convicted of their murders. There are other people that might be connected to Ivan or crimes of Ivan. I won't go into the details, but I will, out of respect, say their names. So there was mother-to-be Karen Rowland, Peter Letcher, Diana Panaccio. There are many other victims, but if I said all their names, we will be here all night. Yeah, no disrespect, but yeah. For now, I'm just going to name these people because that's the ones I know most about. Obviously, it's not a great thing knowing that someone took your family member in such cold blood in such a nasty way. But like I said, he did get convicted, he was caught. A bit too late, but he was caught. So there's some silver lining here. So yeah, that was Ivan. Like I said, if you did enjoy this, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below if you know anything about the case or the trial or anything like that, or even the victims. But yeah, until next time, my next video will be on true survival at sea stories, true stories. So look out for them. Until next time, good night and God bless.